Hi, guys. Welcome back to Sports with Mono and Mono, Saturday morning, April 27th, 2024. And as we talked about last week, spring is trying to get here, and it will get here soon enough. So flowers are up. Hope everybody had a good week. And Eli will be joining us in a moment. We, of course, always start our show with the monologue. And this week it's kind of what we would all think. It was about the NFL draft, but not about the picks and all the moves that were made. It's more about what the draft has become. And I reference this because I may have told the story before that my brother and I went to the NFL draft when it was in the Paramount Theater, and it had to be like 30 years ago, whatever year Eddie George and those guys were drafted. It was, there couldn't have been 500 people in the whole place. And now in Detroit, what you saw on Thursday night and even Friday night, like 150,000 people. So if that's not evidence that the NFL just continues to make more money and more money and more money, it's amazing. And it was in Detroit, but a lot of the feedback from people that went there, they've done a lot of work and they've kind of made the downtown area certainly worthy of hosting an event like that. And it really went off pretty good. Eli and I were going to jump in, of course, in a minute and talk about the draft. But like I said, what it has become. And it's been the forerunner, right? Because now, right, the NBA draft, the WNBA draft, these are all big time things too. But
absolutely,
it was the NFL that set the precedent, and going from 500 people to 150,000 people for the round one of the draft is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, 250,000. It was a big number. It was 250, 500,000. It's going to beat the Nashville record of 600,000 by the end of today's draft. All I could say is the draft has become a special event. Now, from where the NFL Network was at and where most of the fans were, I don't know how you could see. I mean, that's just me. But you know what? I guess being there is all that matters. I know a lot of people that used to live down there that are here now in Jersey, and they said that, if they were there still, they would be at that draft. Football fan, no football fan, watch it day and night, or don't.
Sure.
That's what they said. Because it's a once in a lifetime, pretty cool opportunity to see. And the NFL draft is becoming this situation where it's 50-50 for some. For some people, like Dan Graziano and crew, they say, well, it really doesn't matter until they play the NFL because college football is different from the NFL. We've seen all the time that the guys get drafted and they're a whole new person in the NFL. So that is, the draft has become that 50-50 situation where you have, people that say yes, no, and then 12 million viewers still watching it. It's pretty incredible.
And it's kind of funny, Eli, that it was actually in Detroit, right? After the year that the Lions had. So there's a football frenzy in Detroit.
And they were ready to boo Roger Goodell as soon as, because the whole ref situation, that was the whole biggest argument.
Well, that's a tradition, booing Roger Goodell.
Oh, yes, but now you had an extra reason in Detroit to boo him even more.
Right. So, Eli, first of all, I wanted to thank you and Jack for having me as a guest on your show, the 12th Horseshoe on draft night. That was quite an event for you guys. You did a wonderful job. And, I hope our loyal listeners could check that out because that's
you can check it out over on Surge Sports called the 12th Horseshoe Podcast NFL Draft Watch Party Special. And we were sponsored that night by Prova Italian American Deli. And we can use the promo code here. You could use promo code 12th Horseshoe to receive 20% off your next catering order. So go ahead and check that out at Prova Munaki.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, but good job. Very nice. Very
Appreciate it.
So let's start off, right? Let's jump right into the draft, right? We kind of suspected who the first 4 or 5 picks were going to be, and it kind of worked out exactly as we said before.
Yeah. Exactly. Caleb Williams, I'll start with that. We obviously knew he was going number 1, but I have a good feeling that we're going to be seeing a Carolina Bryce Young situation happen to Chicago. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong, with Bryce Young and everything. I just think that it's just different. Like it's a different, tone set, He's not the quarterback that we all thought. Like yeah, I don't know. Just I have a good feeling that
Well, listen, I mean,
not going to be the
but
quarterback that deserves to be number
Williams
one.
was the clear-cut
Bottom line.
number one pick, right? I mean, he's
Correct.
very
But to live up
cocky
to
and
the NFL
he's
standards, that's what I'm trying to point out. Sorry for lost of words.
yeah, right. But when you look at the Bears, they also got Roman Doozy to beef up the wide receiver core, which is
Which I thought that was
already
good.
pretty good for Chicago.
That
Right?
was a
So
pretty good
Chicago
pick. I
had a
like
pretty good
that one.
draft, yeah. But listen, then we started to get it, right? Then it was pick 5 with the Chargers, and as we mentioned on the show, I think we've got that right. It was going to be Joe Walt, and Joe Walt was the pick for the Chargers. And then the big surprise came, right? The Giants. You know, it was kind of weird because they had J.J. McCarthy in twice, meaning that they were really super high on this guy. And now the pick came, and they took Malik Neighbors, who, by the way, is probably the best wide receiver in the draft. So we didn't forsake McCarthy pick for somebody that, you know, we go would be questionable, right? This kid's going to be a player. He's the all-time leading receiver in catches and yardage at LSU. And you know the history. They got Justin Jefferson and Jarvis Landry, and they got a history there.
100%.
So, but overall, and then later on in rounds 2 and 3, the Giants went defensive backs, one a safety, one a corner. So, you know, that's an area for improvement that they needed to address with the loss of some free agents.
Yeah,
but
in regards to the Giants,
it was just kind of hard for me to believe that, you know, now the Giants and Joe Shane, they're taking the approach, right, that Daniel Jones is our guy. And, you know, there's still question marks with his neck. There's still question marks with him coming back from an ACL. So it was really, I thought that was going to be the right pick, and I would have been happy with McCarthy, even though some experts say he may not translate to the NFL. But I believe that he would. So that was a plus for the Minnesota Vikings because they were all in on him the whole time as well.
And J.J. McCarthy, I thought that was a great pick. But before I get to the Vikings talk, I want to go back to the Giants and the wide receiver Malik Neighbors, as you mentioned. You know, honestly, I was surprised as well that, you know, they didn't take a quarterback. And it really goes to show that they're really going to put full force and the whole hands into Daniel Jones and also to the Seahawks, Drew Lock, who went from the Seahawks to the Giants. So they're really going to stick to those two guys. And if worse comes to worse, go to Tommy Cutlets, Tommy DeVito. So that's I mean, I know it's hard.
Bite your tongue. Yeah, bite your tongue.
Bite your tongue on that one, I know. But, you know, to say that is what the Giants are trying to strategize here is kind of shocking. And we'll see if this is going to be a playoff run team come next year. The way it's looking, though, so far in 3 rounds into the draft, I don't see a playoff team built. Regardless if Drew Lock's going to be the starter or taking over for Daniel Jones, or where Daniel Jones is going to stick out the rest of the season. And I would not be surprised coaching changes are going to happen at New York come next year.
Well,
or if not in the management side. That is just my bottom line. And also one more fact. The quarterback market was huge this year. And the fact to pass off that many quarterbacks is pretty mind-blowing here. That's just all I got to say.
Well, listen, I mean, obviously, like I said, it's a make or break draft. And yes, you know, I've been all in, as you know, on Daniel Jones, but you know what? This is his 5th or 6th year now. It's time, you know, and I just worry about his health because he runs the ball and, you know, but, you know, Drew Lock, you know, I don't know if he's a number 1 quarterback. He's maybe one of the best backups in the league for sure. But we didn't plan for the future. And, you know, because Lock and Jones may not be the future. But I'm not giving up on Daniel Jones. He could have a good year if he stays healthy, which is the big question. But you're absolutely right. If the Giants go 5-12 or something like that, then Brian Dable and Joe Shane are both going to be fired. So
because it was a horrible decision. And remember, the draft market was for the quarterbacks were huge this year. And to pass on this many quarterbacks, that's going to be a problem come next year because you're not going to have star power like you had this year in the quarterback side. You're going to have quarterbacks next year, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to be the quarterbacks you had this year. Not saying any of them will be the greatest, not saying that everybody's going to be the best choice, but you have to throw that out there.
Yep. So Eli, give me, you and I were talking before the show. Obviously, the big kind of confusing,
Shock.
shocking pick was Atlanta taking Michael Penix, moving up to take Michael Penix.
Correct.
And they just signed Kirk Cousins to a 4-year, $180 million contract. So I don't know what the thinking there was, but anytime a quarterback is coming back or any player from an ACL, there's always that question mark. So, maybe down the road, if Cousins gets hurt and doesn't fulfill that contract, then maybe Penix, the deal would
Will
look
be the
good.
right
But
answer.
on paper and on draft night, it was a head scratch.
It really was. I mean, because you know what? I could see the purpose because we are, a lot of ESPN analysts and a lot of shows that I've watched so far, they've agreed and said, well, I think they did this as a safety net for Kirk Cousins. As we know, when he played in Minnesota, it was not exactly the best performance that we saw from him. It was a good performance,
He had a
but
good
not the
career in
greatest.
Minnesota.
Right. He had the most part, but when it comes to the injuries and losing games and interception wise, then everyone's like, hold on, time to go, this and that. And maybe that's what they're saying in Atlanta and the purpose of Michael Penix Jr. In my opinion, I didn't like it. You paid $110 million for Kirk Cousins, now to possibly be benched to Michael Penix Jr., who we may not know is good or not. So at this point, Atlanta Falcons at this point are just wasting money, both on Penix Jr. and Kirk Cousins. Not saying Kirk Cousins was a bad move, but at this point, you're looking at wasting money here in Atlanta. And I'm not happy with the decision. I feel bad for both Kirk and for Michael, because you're potentially facing being benched. And if not, you're looking at wasting money just to play with an interesting team that may not have the success in that division as, let's just say, the Saints and the Buccaneers, who also had a pretty good draft that night.
Yeah. When you look at the quarterback situation at some of the teams that were playing, right? You and I were talking before that the Broncos traded for Zach Wilson, right? So, I don't know what that even means, but they also drafted Bo Nix. So Sean Payton thinks, that maybe he sees something in Zach Wilson, or, I was very high on Bo Nix in the draft. I watched him play a lot last
100%.
year with Oregon. So that quarterback situation, it's out with Russell Wilson, in with Zach Wilson and Bo Nix. So we'll see how that pans out.
Honestly, I like the Bo Nix pick. However, I'm just shocked that they took Zach Wilson. That really was a surprise to me.
Well, they're not
really,
going to have.
It goes to show that they really going to have potential with him backing up the season. In regards to the Vikings, I'm going to bring that because I forgot to bring this up. I like their pick with J.J. McCarthy, but I don't think it was worth moving up one pick for him. I think they could have stayed comfortably the way they were and took J.J. McCarthy without issue, knowing the Jets wouldn't have taken a quarterback unless they thought so because of what Atlanta did. That would be my only reason on why they were to move up. Other than that, I honestly don't know why would you move up one pick knowing that Jets wouldn't take it. But yet again, would that be a factor because of what Atlanta did?
Yeah.
That's
and you know what? I'm actually happy because I'm not a Jets fan, and I'm so sick of this Aaron Rodgers conversation. But the Jets, I thought that everyone was all locked in from Mel Kiper Jr. to everybody doing their mock draft that it was going to be Brock Bowers, who is going to be probably, if he stays healthy, he's going to be a Hall of Fame tight end in 12 years.
100%.
So I'm kind of glad he ended up going to the Raiders. Jets went offensive line to protect Aaron Rodgers. And,
it was a shocking pick.
Those weren't shocking picks, right?
Right.
But there was still some good, this kid Mitchell from Texas, the wide receiver, was last for the second round. Buffalo Bills came back, and they got to rebuild their receiving core, so they got Deion Johnson.
A shock there too. I want to bring up there. You gave up the 28th pick of the draft to give it to the Kansas City Chiefs of all teams, your arch nemesis, and they pick up not like an offensive lineman, defensive lineman. They go for the wide receiver, Xavier Worthy, who was top notch in the combine. What a move by Kansas City. Now, I'm surprised at that because of how well the wide receiver is, but I could see the situation because of how many drop passes that Patrick Mahomes threw last year. Xavier Worthy, I was shocked, and what a horrible move by Buffalo, considering that you just lost Stephon Diggs not just a couple of weeks ago, too. I mean,
but you know what? But Eli, the Bills picked this kid Deion Johnson was one of the top 4 wide receivers in the draft. No question.
So. Right, but was it why would you switch to Xavier Worthy at 28? and give it to the Chiefs. That's my whole thing. You could have still drafted him at 28.
You never know. You never know. You got to make the moves if you think you're going to. Your guy is still on the board. You got to do whatever you can. And I think they ended up with a solid pick. He could
I'm
have
not
been.
saying they agree with the pick, but I'm just saying that to move up to the Chiefs out of all teams who they play always in the NFC champion, the AFC championships always, that's what shocks me. You know, you give him that type of wide receiver power.
Yeah.
Through that pick.
And I think an interesting draft was the Philadelphia Eagles, and
yes,
they went defensive backs on both their picks, and this Cooper DeJean from Iowa is a great player, and those are good picks for Philadelphia.
Yeah, I think I like that pick. I have no issue with it. You know, the Eagles needed to get somewhere in that type of market, and they picked up well. I love Quinn Mitchell, good pick, and Eagles I think did right in that draft.
Yeah. So, here's an interesting fact because I was watching closely. As you know, we did our show from St. Joe's. So
yes, we
did.
A
St. Joe's running back on the board, Audric Estime, who was, a 3-year starter at Notre Dame, kind of like in the Marshawn Lynch mold. He's a big bruising type back.
Right.
He's still on the board. So hopefully he goes in the next round, the fourth round. But, he actually was in the top 3 in rushing at Notre Dame. So it's a little surprising to me that he's still on the board.
Oh no, I agree. That's a definitely a shock. But listen, if you go to 4th to the 7th round, you could still be the greatest. And we noticed that from Tom Brady. So even if you're the last pick of the NFL draft, that doesn't mean you're going to be horrible. You could still be the greatest. And we noticed that. And Tom Brady set the precedent of what the NFL and the last 4 to 7 rounds of the draft should be and how it should be.
Yep. I agree with you. I agree with that, actually. I do.
Yeah. So, and honestly, you could be a first-round draft pick all you want, but it doesn't matter until you play the NFL. And sometimes the 4 to 7 picks, they get very little play time, or are the guys that are really good from a smaller school that stand out better in the NFL. So sometimes smaller is better, and not always bigger is better.
Well, listen, I'm actually glad that the draft has come and it's almost gone because we've been listening to these mock drafts and
I know it's a little annoying. Now it's to get to move along now and focus on the upcoming season.
Yeah. So anyway, big success for the NFL draft and the NFL. They just keep making more money than the United States.
And they're going to try to push it too with what Roger Goodell, the commissioner. He was on the Pat McAfee show yesterday. He highlighted that he wants to expand the NFL season to 18 games. He wants to only have 2 preseason games and to move the Super Bowl to President's Day weekend and to have everybody off on Monday because everybody will be off Monday for President's Day because it's a holiday. And he also plans to expand the international series to more than 16 games, if not 18. Yeah. That's a pretty good decision, I think, if they were to pass that. I don't like the preseason because it doesn't count. It means absolutely nothing. Expanding the season to 18 games and then the Super Bowl President's Day weekend, deal. 100% deal. Yeah. I don't have an issue with it. I think it's a fantastic deal.
Well, that's why they pay Roger Goodell $60 million a year to sit in that chair and make those calls.
Because that is a good decision. That is one of the decisions I'll agree with Roger Goodell with. The one that he also mentioned on the show yesterday, Pat McAfee, he said, I've been watching right now the hockey and basketball games, and you hear just as much about them and their mistakes in returns to the referees. There is no difference whether or not they are paid full-time or not. It's a human game that every single one of us make mistakes on, which is true. You can't argue that one. Yep. He adds, the only way to solve these issues is by adding more technology to the game for them to use when asked a question about the officials. I cannot agree more with that statement because you know what? You're right. You could pay them. I agree. You should pay them full time. I'm on that verge of that side. However, at the same time, look at the NHL and NBA. They ain't perfectionists. We all make mistakes. It's part of life. It makes no difference whether or not you're full-time or non-full-time. It's just part of how the game goes.
Yep.
That's just my thoughts.
All right. Well, listen, we would love to hear everybody's comments on sportswithmono@gmail.com.
Right here on YouTube.
Yep. Or send us a comment right now about the draft, what your thoughts were, some surprises, this, that, and the other thing. But it really was kind of kind of a cool event for us. And again, you and Jack did a good job on it.
Appreciate it.
You know, so listen, it's not the only game in town, right? There's the NHL playoffs going
Yes,
on
it
right
is.
now, and my New York Rangers are up 3-0 over the Washington Capitals, which will be good. So, give chances for like Philip Hedl to come back and play in the next series. But they've been pretty much shutting Ovechkin down. The Edmonton Oilers look great with that line of Hyman,
100%.
Draisaitl, and McDavid. I mean, amazing. The Bruins Maple Leaf series is going to be a tough one. It's going to be a war.
It's a war there.
Really good to see. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're looking at it today. Two teams can clinch the first round spot and call it a night. That being the Hurricanes and the Panthers today, with games at 2 and 5 on TBS.
Right.
They've been playing strong and they've been showing, hey, you know what, man, it's all right about them. We don't need more games than that. 4 games. Let's call it a night. Move on to round 2 and focus and rest.
Yeah,
that's I think the motive of Carolina and the Panthers. They're going to be doing that a lot, and I think that they're going to sweep today. Those are my picks. They're sweeping today.
Yeah, well, it looks like Carolina obviously has the Islanders' numbers, so I think that series closes out today too. But I mean, we talk about it time and time again. We got some other things, hockey related. We're going to mention in some random points, right? I did mention that Andy Ruff might be the next head coach of Buffalo, right? We talked about it on the show last week.
Confirmed. He is the head coach. He was head coach now.
Yep.
Surprise shock there.
Yeah.
And one more thing about the Rangers real quick.
Great.
The Rangers playing the Capitals. Easy win for the Rangers. I hate to say it, but easy win and easy goes. Round 2 is when they'll struggle. That's my thoughts.
Okay. I know it's coming straight from a Devils fan, so I get it.
Yeah.
But this Ranger team is for real. It's a good team.
It's a real thing. Two other notes I'll bring up for the NHL real quick. 3 other notes, rather. The NHL Draft Lottery will be held on Tuesday, May 7th from the NHL Network Studios, Secaucus Studios, and on ESPN on May 7th. Right now, the San Jose Sharks hold the best chance of getting the first overall pick with 18.5%. All Seattle Kraken games except primetime games, will now be available on Amazon Prime Video for the Oregon, Washington, and Alaska areas. Last note, Prime Video in Canada will be hosting NHL Monday Night Hockey beginning this upcoming season for Canadian teams exclusively home. So that's their thoughts for the NHL side of things.
Yeah, and I actually saw our old friend and former guest was Arda Ocal doing the pregame for the Ranger game. And
yes, he was.
I said, we got to look at getting him back on as we get.
Yes, I'm going to look closer towards deeper in the playoffs. So we'll get him on.
Good. All right, Eli. So hockey's in full force. It's great. How about the NBA? Why don't you kick us off with this? What's your take so far on the playoffs?
Well, the NBA is heated. I think that Timberwolves and Minnesota Suns game, the Minnesota is going to sweep tonight. That's my thought. The Nuggets are going to sweep tonight too. LeBron James has not been up to the taste that he's been playing, and I think we're going to expect a sweep down there in the Denver side of things. The Knicks, they've been playing really good, except for obviously the game yesterday, a few days ago with the 76ers taking the victory there. But with Game 4 tomorrow on ABC, I'm expecting the Knicks to win, and I want them to win. And this team right now is where everybody's glued to the Knicks right now. We've been seeing and hearing more about the Knicks than ever before, not just because they're in the playoff run, but because they're actually good for once. So that is why you hear more of them. I like the Celtics Heat series. They're tied at 1 entering Game 3 tonight. That's been an epic series to watch out for. And the rest of the series, I think they've been going well, and we're going to expect a couple of great matchups and a lot of Game 7s, is my opinion.
Yeah, well, it's kind of, like I said, this is going to be something that Adam Silver can't be happy with, that the Lakers are not going to be in the round 2 and LeBron James, because that's always a ratings bonanza whenever he's in the playoffs and going for a championship kind of thing.
100%.
But these are all of these young kids. You mentioned these guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Anthony Edwards. I mean, these are the next stars of the league, and these guys are
100%.
starting to play like it. So there's a lot of youth on the team. LeBron James is closing in on 40 years old, and maybe the salvation is Bronny James next year because they're going to draft them for sure.
Yeah, that's the way it looks like, unfortunately. I mean, but it might
'Cause
work
that's what he
out.
wants. Yeah,
Right.
that's what he wants.
It could work out. You never know.
Right. And let's not forget what's going on here in New York with the Knicks. I mean, they were up 2-0 and they went to Philadelphia, and there was kind of some, as the term I use, thuggery from Joel Embiid. Had a great game, scored 50 points. But I mean, the Knicks, and he not only he guaranteed that they were going to win this series after they were down 2-0. So it's not going to be a Mark Messier type guarantee because the Knicks are going to win the series. Brunson didn't have his best game, but he's
100%.
He's still a player. So I mean, I think the Knicks are looking really good and surprising. But now you got Lillard got a little Achilles tweak, so him and Giannis are not out, so you can cross the Bucks off the list, right? So these are the young teams and the young players that are actually knocking off these old timers.
These charts, right?
Yep.
And I think no issue. I think that the old timers are stepping up, and that's what we're going to be seeing more of here in the upcoming games here and entering the future for sure.
Yeah. So when are the Knicks? The Knicks don't play till tomorrow, right?
The Knicks play tomorrow at 1:00 ABC. Today is going to be the Cavaliers Magic at 1:00, Celtics Heat at 6, 3:30 Thunder Pelicans, and Suns Timberwolves 9:30. TNT has those games, and Nuggets Lakers as tonight also 8:30 p.m. on ABC. So every game is on TNT except for the primetime Nuggets Lakers on ABC.
Okay.
So those are your games to watch.
Yeah, so like I said, the playoffs are in full force here. But let's turn our attention to Major League Baseball and see what's going on in the landscape.
Absolutely.
Right? Let's start off obviously with the Yankees, and Aaron Judge is off to a dreadful start, and Volpe was hot. Now he's cooled off since he moved to the starting top of the order. So, but overall, when you look, I mean, there's still 17-10. There's only one other team that has 18 wins. So they're still getting by. And Aaron Judge will start to heat up. He will finish the year with great numbers. And but right now, they win games, but they also lose games that they should probably close out, and
absolutely. And there was a lot of been confrontation as well. And we noticed that with the A's game and Aaron Boone the other day. The Yankees are in this situation where some fans are going to agree with it, some fans aren't going to agree with it. And then the Aaron Boone, who's always hot-headed to begin with, now is even worse based off of now what the fans are doing too. So this is just getting a little out of hand for the Yankees, and they just got to step it up. And Aaron Judge, yep, he's off that fire start. The downfall is going to come in the summer. Watch this, folks. I hate to be rude. And then wrap it up and call it a season for the Yankees. No playoff run.
Right. Well, you got some surprises across Major League Baseball, right? The Cleveland Guardians are off to their best start in like 30 years, something like that. And but the Dodgers look good, and Ohtani's looking like he's the early favorite for the MVP based on the way he's playing. So the Dodgers are really a high-powered team. They're just loaded from top to bottom.
100%.
But when we talk about the Yankees, I think the biggest concern overall, if we look at the lineup from last year to this year, outside of adding Juan Soto, which has been a great addition, of course, because he's definitely a player. But I don't know that we have the pitching enough. I don't think we addressed it enough in the offseason. And if guys like Oswaldo Cabrera, he's starting to cool off. If those guys, the young kids, don't turn it up, then it could be a long season for the Yankees. But like I said, don't worry about Judge. His numbers will be there by the end of the season.
It will be, and then the downfall, how it goes from there. That's just all I got to bring out there.
Yeah. Let's see.
The MLB is heating up. Cleveland at number 1 in the American, and Atlanta number 1 in the National. They're the two hottest teams right now. But again, it always changes week by week.
And here's one of
Go ahead.
And one of the biggest surprises is you look at always one of the early seasons. They haven't been under 500 this far into the season and since 2016. So, I mean, Major League Baseball is crazy.
Pretty much, it's crazy. It's at its peak right now for sure. And it's the beginning to rise, and then the roller coaster train in the summer.
Yeah. And the Yankees will need Garrett Cole to come back and be a key
save the day.
fixture in that.
To be our hero. Yeah.
And the Mets, on the other hand, off to a slow start, but they're hovering around 500. I think they're one game over right now. So they're starting to warm up a little bit after the first week. Everyone says, "Oh, the Mets are the worst team in the league," and then they go on this run. They win,
and then they win it all. Yeah. Then what are the thoughts then? Exactly.
And what do I always tell you, Eli? It's 162 games.
It doesn't matter to the last 2 months of the baseball season. That's all it really does.
That's right. So a lot of stuff going on here. What am I missing here? So what do you want to bring up?
We did every sport. I think now it's time for random points. I think we're
okay. We'll jump into random points, which of course is sponsored by Lynch Toyota. And as you can see, I'm wearing my Lynch Toyota shirt today, by the way.
There it is. Yeah.
Proof positive, right?
We're positive.
Yeah, I got a couple of random points I wanted to bring up. So, there's a lot of discussion going on with the NBA about who's going to be the MVP this year, right? It's really coming down to, it's a two-horse race, right? It's Jokic and it's Doncic, right? I think it's going to be Doncic, but a lot of people, and Jokic is the favorite. But just to put this into perspective, I was looking up and seeing, this would be his third MVP in 4 years. He should have won it over Embiid last year anyway, but
100%.
There's only a handful of three-time MVPs in the league, and that's Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem, Moses Malone, kind of a surprise there.
That's
Larry
a big
Bird,
one there.
Magic Johnson, obviously Michael Jordan, and LeBron James. So
you can't beat
that
those
would
guys.
be quite a thing. But when I look at the numbers that Doncic had, I think he's leading the league in scoring, and he scores a triple-double a night. But Jokic is still, he's still a force to be reckoned with. So who are you betting on in this little race here?
Embiid and Jokic. That'll be my bottom line. I think I'm going to go with Jokic, though, to win it.
Yeah. Okay.
That's my pick. I know it's a rough race, interesting perspectives, but Jokic is my pick.
Okay. So here was an interesting baseball fact. We were just talking about Shohei Ohtani a little while ago. He just broke the record for most home runs by a Japanese-born player, which was held by former Yankee Hideki Matsui. He had 175 home runs, which I thought is actually kind of low. I thought that Matsui would have had a little bit more than that, but his career's over. This kid Ohtani still got 7 productive years left, so he's going to set a record for Japanese-born home run hitters that will never be broken.
100%. This is the new standard. He will be the greatest player to play MLB baseball, following Jackie Robinson. That's my take.
You're leaving Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth and Willie Mays and Joe DiMaggio and Ted Williams out.
Obviously, not like those guys still on top. Don't want to confuse everybody. They're all still going to be legends on top, but he is going to be one of those legends up there.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm saying they're not going to beat those guys you mentioned as well, Jackie Robinson. I just want to point out that he's going to be up there at the top.
Yeah.
Just want to clarify that real quick with everybody. You got the
just a couple other quick notes.
Yes, I did too.
Scotty Scheffler followed up his Masters victory with a win. The guy is just absolutely on fire right now. Number one player in the world. He's only 26 years old, so what a bright future. And then on the LPGA side, Nelly Korda won her 5th consecutive tournament.
Wow.
So she's becoming the next Annika Sorenstam in women's golf. So
absolutely
keep an eye on her. I think she has a sister that plays on the tour too. But 5 straight wins is impressive no matter what event it is.
Absolutely. Right? There's no question there.
Yep. And just one other random point I wanted to make. The because we were talking a little bit before, Lindy Ruff now takes over for the second time in Buffalo.
Yes.
And the San Jose Sharks fired former Rangers head coach David Quinn.
Right.
David Quinn was the head coach at Boston University, and you know how prominent a college program that is. But that just never translated. I liked him. I thought he was a good pick for the Rangers, but that didn't work out. And maybe it's time to go back to college. The NHL game is much different, but
Yeah. It's
that
a whole
was kind
new
of a
ball game, a
surprise.
new whole system.
Yep. And I just wanted to also bring up one other thing. So, as you know, we follow Rutgers baseball pretty closely
Yes.
because my nephew's the pitching coach. They have a big 3-game series versus Indiana this weekend. They're playing a very tough Big Ten schedule, and they're holding their own there. So I wish those guys all the luck on this trip. And they come back, and I think they host Maryland for a 3-game series next weekend down in Piscataway.
Absolutely.
All right, Eli, give me your random points.
3 notes. We'll start off with this. Eagles wide receiver A.J. Brown has agreed to a 3-year, $96 million deal that was first announced during the NFL draft special. Lions offensive tackle Penny Sewell has agreed terms to a 4-year, $112 million deal. Followed by that is Amon-Ra St. Brown with a 4-year, $120 million deal. So both of those guys re-signed with the Lions. And the final note for today, the Falcons quarterback Matt Ryan officially announces his retirement from the league.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point. I saw that he did officially retire. I mean, he was in the booth last year calling games. But so the question remains, is Matt Ryan a Hall of Famer? And if you look at his numbers, they're very impressive. But, he's got that blemish. They were up 28-3 in the Super Bowl, and they couldn't pull it out.
I'm going to say maybe.
Yeah.
Compared to what we have out there, maybe.
Maybe. I'll go with a maybe.
I wouldn't say yes. I wouldn't say no, but I would go maybe. That would be my route.
I mean, if you look at his numbers, they're very impressive. He was a league MVP one year as
100%.
well. Got a team to the Super Bowl. I just wonder, if there's other guys, that puts up the question. You could throw it right back at the Giants. Is Eli Manning a Hall of Famer? And,
yes,
if you look at his
I absolutely agree.
record,
yes, that Eli Manning is a Hall of Famer. Why do I say that? Nobody has beat Tom Brady twice in a Super Bowl. Nobody has won 2 Super Bowls in a long period of time with the New York Giants. Absolute Hall of Famer. That is a Hall of Famer that has to be in. That's my opinion real quick. I mean, you could all disagree with me, but
I know, but I keep wondering when you look at his overall record, he's basically a 500 pitcher. A 500 quarterback for his entire career.
But again,
that's interesting. I think Matt Ryan will ultimately get into the Hall of Fame. I don't think he's the first ballot Hall of Fame.
That's true. Good point.
Right. So, you got any other points that we got to bring up here, Eli?
No, I think we can go right into the movie. I have none other.
Okay, here's one of my favorite movies, and I'll caution you, it's a tough movie, tough topic. It's about the Vietnam War, but it's called The Deer Hunter, and it was the best picture in 1979, all-star cast, very graphic at times, but it's very powerful. It's always been one of my all-time favorite movies. So it's a long movie, but it's kind of a dark depiction of the Vietnam War, but it sure as hell was real, as people could vouch. So it's a great movie. If you have an opportunity to see that, that's my movie recommendation of the week. Yep.
All right, that's good. Yeah, I'll give one, I guess. I mean, yesterday the grammar school put on Aladdin Jr., which is the Disney movie. So my pick would be Disney's Aladdin. Watch either on Broadway or go see the movie on Disney Plus. That's my recommendation.
I actually loved Aladdin. My kids grew up when we watched it all the time. It was a great movie.
It's a great.
That was Robin Williams was in there, right?
Yes.
He was the genie, wasn't he?
Yes. Yeah. He was great, and the Broadway play is just even better. If you go see it in New York City, you have to see Aladdin on Broadway. It's even better.
You saw it?
I saw Aladdin. That was my first Broadway I ever saw. It was Aladdin. It was fantastic. One of the best to see.
Very good.
That's my pick.
Okay, we got a video I want to post.
Yes. Let me put that up real quick.
So I'll give a little promo. These are 10-year-old kids playing baseball, and this is kind of a big deal to me. That happens to be my grandson who's up at bat right now.
Yeah.
It's only a minute, folks. A big shot to center field. He's rounding second base. He holds up and then he decides to go for third. And the ball's still trying to get from the outfield. And here he comes rounding home plate inside the park.
Wow. That's exactly it. That's how you play baseball.
Isn't that cool?
That's awesome. Wow.
Isn't that awesome?
Good for him.
Yeah. And I meant to send the other picture because my granddaughter, she's also starting, little lacrosse. She's only 6 years old, but it's kind of cute. We keep talking about this, the popularity, right? My other nephew's going next year to play.
It's been building up. That's going to be a popular sport to watch that we're going to be starting to talk about soon.
That's right. It was a big win for my nephew Sean, who's a senior at Ramapo, and next year he's going to play for the University of Scranton. So it's amazing how big lacrosse has gotten in New Jersey when it was non-existent when I was in high school.
Absolutely. It definitely changed for sure.
Okay, Eli, I got a couple of notable passings to mention. One is Dave McCarty. Now, the name may be foreign to some, but if you were watching the Red Sox-Yankees championship series, that's the year the curse was broken for the Red Sox. A member of that team was Dave McCarty, 51 years old, and he was a member of that 2004 Boston championship team. Died suddenly at age 51, but he didn't actually. He was kind of a pivotal player during the season. I don't think he made an appearance in that, but he still got a championship ring.
Absolutely.
And there was another one, former Giants player Corey Cunningham, 28 years old, New Jersey resident, played for the Giants for like 3 years and the Patriots and one other team, but very young, 28 years old. He was an offensive lineman. Didn't have a long career, but he did play in the NFL. Very young.
That's what matters. You got to play, and you could still live up to that.
And there's one other one, and I know you're not going to know who Roman Gabriel was, but Roman Gabriel was 83 years old, played 11 years with the Rams, and then he played 5 years with the Philadelphia Eagles, and he was the first Filipino football player. Very, very handsome quarterback and kind of Hollywood playboy, and he was really, really good. Actually won I think he was an MVP one year as well. So
that's pretty good.
He was 83 years old and he was the second overall pick in the 1962 NFL draft.
Pretty amazing.
He had one of those, the old time face mask where it was just like one bar that went across,
Wow.
So that puts it into perspective, but he was a real Hollywood type and but he was a very, very good quarterback and he was 83 years old. So
wow.
Amazing, right?
Yeah. The last notable passing I have is Bob Cole, who's a Canadian hockey broadcaster for the NHL. He just died this past week. He's been doing hockey broadcast for a while. He was born in 1933.
Well, wow. So he's been around. He was probably part of Hockey Night in Canada and stuff like that, right?
I think it's still going around. I think Hockey Night in Canada. Is it? No. Yeah.
All right. So let's lay out some programming notes for next week's show.
So for next week's show, we'll be live at 8 o'clock. That's May the 4th. Be with you, May 4th, 2024. 8 a.m. will be live instead of 10 because St. Mary's has a baseball game. Call the games unless it gets postponed or rained out. Then we'll be at 10. But more than likely 8 o'clock next week. That's the bottom line. Okay.
Good.
And that's for this week's programming note. Yeah.
All right. Excellent. And again, really kudos to you guys for your draft coverage. It was a great show.
Appreciate it.
Like I said, we're nothing without our loyal listeners here. And Eli had a good base watching them, and we have a good base watching our shows. And I know we just got a comment, but
Yeah, Frankie. Well,
yeah,
go ahead.
Frankie Pisano. I know he's not a big fan of the general manager, but Frankie, hang in there. We got a really good wide receiver. Just don't know who's going to throw it to him yet. And yes, Darren Waller's been an absolute bust. So you can't fault him for that, I don't think. Anyway.
Well, we think.
But everybody,
it's a different area for a different day.
Yeah, we're nothing without our listeners. So send us comments, and we'll talk about it on the following week's show. And Eli, have a great week, and
have a great week.
Have a great week for all of our fans, and we'll see you back bright and early bird special next week.
All right, have a good one, everyone.